So there are two dynamics, and people seem to think that they are somehow opposed to one another. The first one is the dynamic of the alpha widow, and the other one is the war brides dynamic. And I've written a couple of essays about the difference between those two, because it seems like sorry, I have to. I'm weird. Sometimes I have to like sit Indian style. It's just weird. Keep my blood flowing. But let's just to review the class. This is a pod class. To review the alpha widow concept is the guy that is the beast, right? That can't be tamed. He's the one that got away. He's the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break. And when she was in college and she just can't, he fucked her, and she enjoys fucking him, but he's never going to be dad material. He's never going to be boyfriend material. He just simply is not, because like he can afford to be shared by other women. And I think more and more women are starting to like realize that's the case. Like Pook once said that, it was Pook who said that women would rather share a successful hot alpha guy than be saddled with a beta loser, than be saddled with a guy who's just this faithful beta loser. It's preferable to be with the alpha guy and like try and share him with other men, or with other hopefully not other men, with other women, in the hopes that she can lock him down at some future point, and that he'll magically somehow see something in her, and maybe he'll get to the point in life where he matures enough that he wants to fall in love with her, and that never really happens. That's the alpha widow. Now, what is war brides? The war brides dynamic is that women would tend to fall in love with their captors. Okay. And that was I'm going to, in a nutshell, it's in our evolutionary past, intertribal warfare. All the men and all the boys would be killed. All the older women, all the women who'd known a man would be killed. This is actually in the Old Testament even. And the women who were virgins or who had not the desirable fertile females would be taken as spoils of war and integrated into the conquering tribe, right? So the theory goes that women who are more able to let go of their prior attachments to their children and their menfolk and everything else, and they would be more survivable in their new situation where they were taken as spoils of war and integrated into the conquering tribe and the collective of women that are there. That's why women tend to be more collectivist and more communitarian than men who tend to be more hierarchical, right? So, again, that's as a function of survivability. It's either you develop some sort of like psychological mechanism for Stockholm syndrome, or else you die. And meaning that loyalties towards tribe are preempted by loyalties towards offspring and survivability for women, because women have one intrinsic value: they can incubate the next generation. So a lot of people will say, well, if that's the case, Rollo, then why is it that women can so easily get over a guy, but yet they'll pine for an alpha male? And my answer to that is that they usually will. So if there's a woman who is really a ride or die girl who is with her man, and that man is killed by by a conquering tribe, however that plays out, it could be an army, it could be whatever, he's killed, that woman has two choices. She can either be killed herself, or she can join the tribe as a spoil of war for the conquering tribe. Most women will join the tribe because it's just simple survivability, right? But there are women who will say, you know what, screw it, he was the best that there could be, and I will die rather than give up my man, like the Spartans, right? I would rather die than give up my man, right? Then they didn't go on to reproduce anymore. And so over the course of history, more women who could develop Stockholm syndrome as a mechanism and an adaptation for survivability, they became more prevalent because they were the ones who survived and not the ones who like had a ride or die mentality. Now, we live in the 20th and 21st century, and now we don't have to worry so much about that. So the natural inclinations become what they are. So are there, like when guys ask me, one of the reasons why I came up with the war brides dynamic theory was because so many guys are saying, Rollo, why is it that women can get over men so quickly after a breakup? And there's two reasons for that. One is what I just said, the war brides dynamic, which is the Stockholm syndrome. And it's this necessity. It's like a hindbrain thing women are solipsistic, and it kind of plays into the solipsism, the innate, subconscious solipsism. But that's neither here nor there. The idea that that women need to they need to find a new mate to survive is still something that's part of the female psyche, the human female psyche. Men don't understand this because we don't have to worry about that. We either die or we live. But that's dynamic number one. That's consideration number one. Consideration number two is you've got to also consider that, like, when women are ride or die women, they're doing so because, like, that guy, like, they have a much harder time getting over a guy who was a really good catch. They have that's why they pine for the alpha. That's how they become alpha widows, because that guy represents the idea or the ideal that she could have had or hoped that she could have had. You can just go to hell, dude. Bye. So when you look and you say that, well, there must be some sort of conflict between those two, there's really not, because it's all depends on what the priorities are. If a woman is attached to a guy who is a faithful loser, who is the beta guy, well, losing that guy is not that big a deal to a woman who already probably because for the most part, women are the ones who break up with men. I'm not saying it doesn't happen the other way around. It does, but very rarely. And usually the men who break up with women are higher value than the woman they're breaking up with. They will usually be like, or at least perceptually to them, like Justin Waller would probably have no trouble breaking, and I know because I've seen it happen, has no problem breaking up with a woman because he knows he's going to get laid by the next girl who comes by and puts a phone number in front of him, which also I have seen happen. He knows he has options. He knows he has opportunities. It's much easier for a guy who is the top 4.5% of alphas to break up with a woman than it is for a woman to break up with a guy like represents the apex of alpha maleness, right? That's probably not going to happen. So because there's the ratio imbalance. If Justin Waller is a 9 and he's like banging 8s and 7s, the 8s and 7s, they're on their best behavior because they're like, but they say, well, they don't have self-esteem. No, they do, but you're going to see that that's going to be manifested in their behaviors. So women loathe the idea. They want to be the one. They want to get the rose. They want the ring. They want to be the baby mama. They really want, and I know the baby mama, but they don't want to lose out on the best thing that they ever could get. For men who are in a state of sexual deficit, the best thing they could ever get is whoever fucked them most recently. Because most 80% of guys are betas, right? And if that beta male gets laid, it's his world collapses if he can't like maintain that, and he'll do anything and pedestalize that woman. That's why there's this sort of innate pedestalization for most guys when they hold women to this just high standard, right? They praise women, they lift women up to that high standard, they pedestalize them. That's what we call it, pedestalization. Men will do that innately. That's not even a learned behavior. That's just practicality. It's just deductive logic for most guys, because most guys live in a state of sexual deficit. So if you don't know where your next meal's coming from, the meal that you just had, this is the best fucking cracker I've ever had in my fucking life. I can't believe this is amazing. This cracker, holy shit. I didn't even know they made crackers like this. But it's just a fucking cracker, right? It's not filet mignon. But you don't know that because if you're starving in the desert, that fucking cracker looks pretty fucking good. So yeah, and yes, I'm stealing that from Eddie Murphy.